Hey there, we're the Westlaw Pirates and welcome to the show. We're here to share our thoughts on Northwestern athletics and college sports with thoughts and analysis from the visceral to the statistical. We run our tailgate with the red pirate flag flying high above as we give no quarter, especially the fourth. I'm Sam Walter.
I'm John Lacombe.
And I'm Eric Scuzz. How do you like them apples, Scousebo?
A great win. Just a really, really great win. And obviously we're going to...
A win, we needed that so bad.
Yeah. And yes, it was Eastern Illinois. But don't let that take anything away from what we saw Northwestern do, especially offensively, how they found themselves. And, specifically Jack Lausch. And we're going to get into him, really, really in depth. But let's just right off the top, a rough start, and to see how he turned it around, running the 2-minute drill and then into the second half where he was 11 of 11. Incredible first game for Lausch.
Yeah, so I probably told this story maybe 7 years ago on the pod or thereabouts, but this was definitely rattling around in my brain. So about 7 years ago, our daughter was 2. My wife and I were having a very stressful spring. And because of that, it's stress work stuff, we kind of shake and baked a vacation down in Florida at Lauderdale by the Sea, by Fort Lauderdale. And the idea being we'd fly in on a Friday night and we would fly back on a Tuesday.
John, does this story end with one of you guys sleeping on the beach on a lawn chair?
Shouts to Matt Heiss, friend of the pod. Groomsman at my wedding, who did that exact thing on a vacation that Scuzz and I were also on.
Sorry, I didn't mean to derail you. I just had a moment.
No, not at all. But so we flying out on a Friday night, and because the same reason I was so stressed out about work, I couldn't really divorce myself from the work situation. So I brought my backpack that had all my work stuff in it, including my work laptop. And we got to the hotel in Lauderdale by the Sea, and I realized I had left the backpack with the laptop in it right by the conveyor belts in the Fort Lauderdale airport.
Oh, no.
By the time we called the airport, they had already been like, I don't know who we spoke to, but someone basically being like, well, maybe it got brought to the Lost and Found, but the Lost and Found is closed now, and it doesn't open again until Monday. So the whole point had been to relieve stress. And instead, I spend the whole weekend just being like, please tell me that I didn't let my work laptop bag get stolen, right? And I'm trying to be like staying in the moment for like my kid, enjoying time on the beach, suppressing all this stuff. Monday morning at 9 a.m., first thing, right? First second they open, I call the Lost and Found, get someone on the phone, and immediately she's like, yep, your backpack is right here. It's right waiting for you. You can pick it up when you fly out. And that Monday is one of the greatest vacation days I have ever had in my life. The food tasted incredible. The spray of the ocean was just majestic. The sun filled. It was all perfect. The point being, sometimes the road to the most positive experience is not a road any of us ever would have drawn up beforehand. But that's exactly what we got Saturday night, and that's exactly where we are with Jack Lausch right now.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
You guys were there. I tuned in a little bit late, but watched it all on delay. And I won't lie, I happened to accidentally see when I started the recording. I happened to see, I think on Twitter, I can't remember where, but that the score at the time was 17-7. Maybe it was when I turned on the TV. It would just happen to be on the channel. Like it's amateur hour here after the kids go to sleep. Let's be honest. But so I was able to watch the first half, knowing that at some point down the road in the game, Northwestern had a 10-point lead. And so that calmed me through the times that you guys and many fans, watching this game were really struggling, because that first half was tough. And we've seen a lot of tough offense from Northwestern. Obviously, the frustration of the Duke game and the quarterback play and the offense was fresh in everybody's mind. And then talk about a palate cleanser in that second half. And I want to start here because I will say probably, I've said it on Twitter already 4 or 5 times. I'm going to say it another 4 or 5 times on this podcast. We need to see Jack Lausch against tougher competition. We need to see this offense against tougher competition. Full stop.
Yeah.
But let me tell you about the last several times we've played an FCS opponent. Do you know the last time we beat an FCS opponent?
Oh, God,
in this like dominant of a fashion?
Like,
I don't.
Yeah.
2015.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
2015, we smoked Eastern Illinois, 41-0. The following year, we lost to Illinois State 9-7.
Which
We
was that was the first game my daughter ever saw live.
Yep.
She was 8 weeks old. She
Now-
came to this game. She came to this game this past week, 8 years old, and got to see a win. It was
There
great.
you go. Now I'm not counting the game against Massachusetts toward the end of the 2019 season. A Northwestern team in week a Northwestern team like known for getting better as the year goes on, playing an FCS opponent in the 10th week of the year versus the 3rd week of the year. I just don't think it's quite comparable. But 2021, we beat Indiana State 24-6. That was not a dominant performance. We didn't cover the spread. The next year, we lost to Southern Illinois, and then last year, Howard, had us all biting our fingernails at the end of the game. Point being, yes, this was a lower-tier team. Yes, it is a team that we should have thumped many times in our fan lifetimes. We have not thumped that team that we were supposed to thump, and it took him the better part of a half to get there. But you could watch the game slowing down for Jack Lausch before your very eyes and finding his comfort zone and figuring it out. This was not the type of game where an athletically gifted individual just kind of takes over. This was Jack Lausch operating this offense at peak effectiveness. When the decision making, and I'm not suggesting that the dude was perfect or Superman or anything. Like, of course he was struggling to find the open receivers with the zone. He could, everything was late in the first half, and then his location was off. The speed of the game was totally overwhelming him.
Here's the thing. No, finish your thought. But I noticed something in that. Maybe this is where you're going, and if it is, I apologize for stepping on you. When he was missing in a way that the defense could not get it. He was missing so low. They were never in danger of getting turned over.
I don't think his brain was functioning in the first half.
No,
and I don't mean that critically. I just mean Sammy, you and I play hockey. I'm a hockey player. I've been playing hockey for 6 or 7 years now. Even to this day, the moment the puck gets on my stick, my brain starts freaking out. Oh my god, they're gonna get me. Get rid of the puck. And I have to force myself to slow down and recognize that I have time and time to think. And that the only way you get that when there are defenders coming after you is working at it and experiencing that game speed and getting comfortable with it. You saw Lausch get there in real time. In the first, I hope that's what he was thinking in the first half. Like, hey, I'm gonna throw this as hard as I can at the tight end, and it's gonna be, down near the ground. And if he gets it, great. And if he doesn't, at least I didn't throw a pick. I hope that's what he was thinking. But I think more importantly is when you saw him start to figure it out, and on that first touchdown drive and in the second half, when he made the decision to run, he just took off. There was no flirting around in the backfield. Oh, could I go this way? Oh, could I go that way? No, it was like, hey, this is my read. Either I give it or I keep it, and then I just take off straight up the gut. He did that 2 or 3 times, kind of getting his legs under him on that first touchdown drive. And then go back and watch the touchdown passes, watch the deep throw to Henning, watch the RPO to Henning. He is doing exactly what Lujan wants, which is read the defense front to back. What's the safety doing? What's the linebacker doing? Throw. He's processing as he's dropping back 3 or 5 steps. His back foot hits. There's a beat, and he throws. That's the decisiveness that, frankly, Wright was struggling with. He much more often went to the, well, let me extend the play and see what can happen, yada, yada, yada. That's not playing within the structure of the offense, as we heard the coaches saying a whole bunch. Lausch did it to, it looked like perfection, and it certainly was not perfect. Yes, it's a lower tier opponent, but the results speak for themselves. 31 points, a game that, like, if he had been playing that way the whole game, we'd probably put up 50. They were clicking. You could see the energy in Lang and Henning and Gordon. What they needed that palate cleanser as much as we did. This offense, the line, everybody needed this moment. Even, Wright getting back out there at the end of the game and getting some run on a drive. Like, this was so cathartic for the entirety of Northwestern Nation.
You know what it
Absolutely.
felt like to me is it clicked in that 2-minute warning when you could see it was don't think, just do. Right? He wasn't like in his head about it. It was just, like you said, methodical. It was happy. It was there, and he was able to turn it on and take it from the 2-minute drill into the half. 100% completion percentage in the second half. It was the moment it looked like his brain turned off, and it just went into muscle memory, and the reads were there, and he just went with the system.
Absolutely. I think in hindsight, too, you can look back at the first half, and I think multiple people made the point that, his receivers dropped a couple in the first half, and that's true. I think also, too, you can go back, look now and be like, to what you were saying earlier, Sam, he was just kind of spraying the ball when he was throwing the ball. It wasn't so much an execution thing. And this goes to what Scuzz is talking about, too, because now you can look back and be like, look, even when he was missing on passes, he was executing run plays perfectly. That was apparent right off the bat. It's like, oh, he's executing. Like, his option reads are great. He had a great game on the ground all game long. And there was a time where we were like,
and he helped spring that long Hyman run. I mean, he had a couple of just excellent pulls and then excellent gives where the defense wasn't sure till the last second, and he had read them properly and set his guy loose.
Right. And he was wired up and he was spraying the ball and short hopping most of them, right?
Yeah.
And they were coming out short, and that part of it was a mess. And I think the thing is, in the time, I mean, this is something that's not common with quarterbacks, but it's sure as hell not common with Northwestern quarterbacks. We have never seen someone pull out of a tailspin like this.
Oh my God.
It goes the other way 95 to 99% of the time. And we all have all of the shared trauma of all of those memories, right? And that's the funny thing where you look back, and I think Lang had that one big drop in the first half. And I'm comfortable talking about that because Lang had one great catch and one phenomenal catch in this game in the second half. He made just an absolutely incredible catch, but one got through his hands in the first half. And you can look back now and be like, well, look, Lausch was just getting dialed in and his receiver just dropped a pass. Yeah, but in the moment, that's not where any of us are living, because it's those are the kind of things where it's like, these things snowball, right? Quarterback's having a bad day, and then the couple times he locates, they get dropped, and it just it all feeds off of itself in a negative way. We've all watched this play out a million times, and then you end up with a quarterback who's 7 for 20, on the game for 50 yards, right? We've all seen that happen, and that's just not where Lausch was. Even when he was spraying the ball all over the place, there was the one video that we put up on Twitter where you have to apply the context that it's you have to understand the line this guy had throwing the ball at the time that he does this, which is he just drops back into the pocket. EIU sends a blitz. Joseph Hyman, 180 pounds, is in charge of picking that guy up. You can look at Lausch. Lausch never even blinks. He's just well, I'm sure Hyman will pick him up. He's got it. Steps right up into the pocket, feels the pressure from the left, rolls out, and hits Lang with a bullet for a first down. And from that point on, he was just off and running. I think he missed 1 or 2 passes the rest of the game. And it's funny for anyone. I mean, Scuzz, you talked about that you pulled in late. Well, for anyone who either started the game late or just looked at the box score the next day, I think one of the big worries that anyone would have, right, is looking at a box score and being like, all right, well, how much did I really learn? How much did we really learn about Jack Lausch? Like, well, 20 for 31 for 227 and 2 TDs. What was it actually like? The best possible version of that stat line you could possibly ask for. That's what it was. A guy who didn't have it figured out right up until he did, and then was automatic the entire rest of the way. And it's like, that's the thing too. And again, you fold in, we know he's beloved locker room guy. We know he fires the guys up. You can see the team feeding off of the energy, and yeah, man, it just all worked.
You mentioned that stat line. I want to jump in with something that I was doing a bit of research on Sunday morning, because my thought watching the game was, this is damn impressive for a debut, and that we have not seen that many awesome debuts. And I just like, even guys who turned out phenomenal in their career, like Thorson is the one that always stands out so much to me in that game. Now, against a very, very difficult Stanford team in his very first game as a true freshman, but maybe he was a redshirt, I forget, but I'll never forget him. I mean, he threw for 105 yards in that game. He was 50% complete. He had an awesome touchdown run, right? That kind of salted
we were like,
for Northwestern.
We were like, he's going to break 50-yard runs every game. That was the only one.
But there's
one. Oh, how naive we were.
He threw a ball over the middle that was just like, should have been intercepted, given the parameters of where it was thrown, all that sort of stuff. But he threw it so hard. It was like, if I throw this 1,200 miles an hour, maybe my receiver can't catch it, but at least they won't either. And it literally bounced off the linebacker's head before he could even get his hands up. But so, like, point being, the only other turnaround I can think of, John, and I didn't research this, but it takes me back to the very first time we saw Brett Bazinet on the field for Northwestern as a true freshman. Really struggled in the beginning of that game. I think it was against Air Force. Gets pulled for the first backup. Tony Staus, maybe? I can't remember who the first backup was. First backup doesn't look good. They pull the first backup. They bring in Andrew Webb, who all of a sudden ignites Northwestern's offense and then has his liver lacerated by a brutal hit.
God, that's right.
And Baz has to go back in the game and actually ended up having, I think he was, a little bit better than 50% complete for 160 yards. We lost that game. But, your point is spot on. We have not seen many debuts that look like this. And when you bake it down, this is the second or third best debut ever by a Northwestern QB. Dan Purse's first start. Now, he played in I think 2 halves of games the prior year, covering for Trevor Siemian. Covering for Mike Kafka. But Purse's first game, he was 19 of 21 for 220 yards and 3 TDs. Plus, he ran for 82 yards against Vanderbilt. That's the most total yards in a debut. It's the most passing yards in a debut. Lausch is number 2 after that. And the next closest is when CJ Bechet came in against Michigan State and threw for 245. He also threw 2 picks. He also threw 3 TDs. So, Lausch is in rarefied air just in that debut component of this game and how he performed. And the fact that it took him a half to get there speaks volumes for just what the potential is. But there's one other thing, and I hate doing this because I'm such a stat head and I don't like these other things, but all the tropes about clutch and a gamer and everything else, I can't help steering into those comments because it's what you heard about Lausch when he was leading Brother Rice through the high school playoffs in Chicago. That this QB that was on nobody's radar was I can't remember if they won the championship or came up just short, but he was that's how everybody talked about him. And when you see his energy in the post game press conference, when you see his decisiveness and just his willingness to be physical and trust the players around him on the field and just go for it. I can't come up with anything stepping away from this other than the dude's a gamer, and I can't wait to see where we go from here.
And what's wild is midway through the second quarter when things were not going great. Like it hadn't clicked yet, but to see kind of the rumblings around us, sitting in the stadium, John ran off to the restroom before halftime to beat the rush, and guy we were sitting with was like convinced that Mike Wright was going to be coming in the second half, and I said, "There's no chance. They're gonna run. They're gonna roll with him because you could not pull him there, because if say you did pull him, you just destroyed whatever confidence he had. He's like, you got to let him work through this, and then the 2-minute drill hit, and it was off to the races. It was, the vibe in the crowd too. You could feel it, and then it all clicked.
Absolutely. You hear that guy who was sitting with us? You would have been out $5.
I did not take the bet. He offered me $5. I did not take it.
So the big question now is what we see go, and we're not ready to pivot to Washington yet, but that's the big question is what we see. I mean, Lausch is going to go from a home game against EIU is an inferior football team from a talent perspective, but this is a good FCS team that is really well coached and really solid across the board, and Northwestern did what they should do and took them to the woodshed, and that's awesome. Lausch is going to see more pressure. He's going to see more complicated coverages. He's going to be in a notoriously hostile environment in Husky Stadium, and it might go poorly. Those are really hard things to contend with in your second start as a college QB. So I think he's certainly earned some leeway, and I certainly don't expect him to go 11 for 11 in either half against Washington, but it's like all upside. Like it, with that being said, I feel like we heard this from a lot of folks over the last couple days. Whether or not people are totally bought in on Lausch yet, or think that this offense can really come around against tougher competition, no, not everybody's convinced yet, but just about everyone is pretty excited to see Lausch get on the field again and see what he can do. The anticipation here is really high. For
sure. And again, we're going to get, when we get to Washington, like when we make the pivot to that game, there are definitely a lot of you who I know are like, well, you're about to go way up in class. That is for sure true. And on the other hand, we are going to hammer home when we get into that part of this podcast. I can't stress enough, it's all going to be about which team executes better in that game. That's what it's going to come down to. Who just executes their own damn offense without making mistakes. That was what was so good about him in the second half, is he ran everything really well. And it's funny because you mentioned the whole Brother Rice piece of this. There's a really important thing that everyone needs to know about this piece of it, is just like Scuzz said, Jack Lausch he's like a 6'2", not particularly large. Arm strength looks good, but like it's not the kind of arm strength that was going to walk into like camps and blow everybody away, right? He's known to be very mobile. He was a winner at the high school level. He absolutely has that dog in him, but all of these collective things were not enough to earn him more than one FCS offer, in addition to the Northwestern offer that ended up coming to him, right? He has all of those things, right? All of the things that at once led him to be overlooked by so many people, but also, right, beloved locker room, has that dog in him, winner, really mobile, really understands a system, really knows how to work in that system, under-recruited kid from the Chicagoland area. That is literally the guy that Zach Lujan built into an FCS Player of the Year in the 4 years that directly preceded this year. That's Mark Gronowski. That's the exact kind of guy. An overlooked guy with that heart of a lion and the ability to work really well in a system and understand exactly what that system needs from him, this is exactly the kind of guy Lujan knows how to work with. So when you see this, and you see, like, I mean, in the second half, we were very much like, this looks like a well-oiled machine. Everything that was, all those passes that were skipping in the first half, in the second half, we were like, this offense is running like clockwork right now. That's what it's going to be. It's going to be who runs their offense like clockwork in Seattle. That's what's going to determine this game.
But before we get to that, can we talk about...
we got some other accolades.
Can we talk about the number 6 rush defense in the country?
But before we go Rushdie, I just want to real quick, AJ Henning, career high in receiving yards. The energy in his celebration dance in the end zone after scoring. I felt like you saw him hit another gear on that RPO, which was also like the third or fourth best play of the game. Just in terms of how perfect and pretty the read and the execution was. This is the AJ Henning, the coming out party that we were hoping for. Marshall Lang with the toe tap in the back of the end zone. Oh boy. Both of those touchdown passes. I mean, the pass to Henning was, Lausch dropped a dime. I mean, and then he did it again a couple times later on, getting the ball over the second level and into Henning or Lang. Another one to Thomas Gordon. I mean, I felt like the receivers came alive. Covey did get injured, so he was not out there much. And then the running backs had, Porter was excellent once again. Hyman had a good game. He still didn't have Herzog, but the line performed much better than they did the prior week. And I just like the energy exuded on offense was awesome, but the defense was maybe better.
This is I know because we've already experienced this on Twitter. I know that there are a bunch of you defensive parents who've just been sitting through this pod this whole time being like, when are you going to mention the defense that's driving this team?
Yeah, we're going to mention them now because, my 100%. God, number 6 rush D in the country.
200. They gave up 211 total yards in this game. I mean, EIU didn't do nothing. I mean, it's number 6 rush defense in the country. We did the math. They're the number 31 overall defense in the country. If that knee is down against Duke, we finish with the number. We would have the number 25 total defense.
That knee's not down.
He's not down.
Right. And the knee's not down. But that's the thing. If the game did not go to overtime, right? That's what would happen. So they are playing unbelievably well. And it's so funny because we were sitting in the stands knowing that, again, we're still waiting for Carmine Bastone to get back. We know that Anto Saka was out for this game. It sounds like they're basically just giving him some time to rest up for Seattle, where his number is going to be called again and again and again. So we were kind of looking to be like, okay, so who are some of these guys? I mean, one thing you could see is that with Anto out, Kenny Soares pretty much slides right into that role. Like the full-time pass rush, if it's third down, you're out there role. And Kenny on a stunt, almost, I mean, the EIU quarterback's life flashed before his eyes for a second on that stunt. And it was out of this world, and he almost got home on it. But we were watching, like, Dylan Roberts got in for the first time, right? Not for the first time, but got some extended action and got his first sack.
That was the other prettiest play of the
game.
Right. An absolute there's a GIF. We put up a GIF of that too. Absolute monster of a sack. Aiden Hubbard had a monster game in this game. But they all did. Like I feel like I could do this every single game with Xander. Every single game he does something that is so good that people don't even notice. He makes all the highlight plays, and then he also is doing all of these essential things. And on the interception, on Braden Turner's interception, that happens because Xander is in unbelievable coverage. And the quarterback throws a pretty good ball to the tight end, and Xander's in there immediately to break it up, and it leads to the interception. He just does stuff like that all the time. And then Matt Millen on the color broadcast, like, I mean, no shade to Matt Millen, but a couple times he's like, you're the tight end, like, you got to catch that. And it's like, on one hand, sure, but that's an FCS tight end being covered by one of the very best players in college football. And it's like, these are the kind of things that the very greatest players make happen. And you just, all these pieces. And then, as we know, like all of these young guns, like Robert Fitzgerald made an elite tackle to blow up a wide receiver screen in this game. And that's a guy who already has 2 turnovers this season. Like I said, Turner got that interception, like this young, hungry secondary, and then like the line, and like, again, the best linebacker in the Big Ten. Like, they're just sick. They just do everything, man. And it's like they're just a wall.
I just think I want to take this opportunity to once again just emphasize, like, we gave up 340 yards or 330 yards to Howard last year. We had 3 sacks in that game, just like in this game, but the defense didn't look nearly as dominant. No turnovers. I just like it, I think it's. I know everybody is gonna but this EIU game, and there's a kernel there. We need to see this team put together this kind of performance against tougher competition. Full stop. But the comparisons that you can make, you should feel good about the way the arrow's pointing, folks.
It's true. Yeah, absolutely.
For sure. Now, I would say the couple things, right? And again, it all relates, and you will see exactly why, to where we're going to pivot in a second. But still had 6 penalties in this game, and we had a field goal blocked. And these are the little execution things. These are the wrinkles that we are still trying to iron out here. These are the things where you go back and you're like, it's these little things, right? And
did we have a field goal blocked against Duke, or did we just miss it? I can't remember.
We missed the short one into the wind.
That's right, because of the wind. Yeah. Okay.
In fact, and the Milkman, like, he looked good in this game. Like, he hit a 46-yarder, and it was a nice kick. But the other one was blocked, and that goes in the books as a miss. But
Matt Millen was trying to contend that it was a low kick, and I'm here to tell you that, like, the blocking on that field goal left a lot to be desired, unfortunately.
Yeah. So I mean, like, these are the little things, and it truly is going to be about execution against Washington, 100%. It is going to be the team that runs its offense the smoothest, without committing penalties and without making mistakes, is going to be the team that wins this game. And I mean, there are some parallels, but I mean, like, for us, it's looking back at that Duke game, and it's more apparent than ever that if the team that played in the second half of this game and executed the second half of the Eastern Illinois game, I don't think there's any one Northwestern fan that's like, yeah, but it would have been different against Duke. No, it wouldn't have. That was the whole problem, was playing clean football. We were moving the ball against Duke all day when we just executed the offense. And the performance in the second half of the Eastern Illinois game 100% would have had us beat Duke. And we have to live with the fact that's off the table. But we're not the only team that is dealing with situations like that. And it's all about who cleans it up and who finds the way to play effective football going forward.
Before we turn the page to Washington, any final thoughts on this game? End of non-conference play. We're getting into Big Ten action.
I'll say this. We haven't talked yet. I mean, we've done preamble, I think, the past couple of times about how awesome the tailgate experience has been before the games. That did not change. It continued to be phenomenal. But in kind of a point of reference of how great this community is and how tight this community is, our tailgate was set up next to the Lausch family tailgate. And when I say the Lausch family, I mean whatever the max number of the Lausch family is, that's how many people.
Oh yeah.
the Lausch family was aware.
Most of Beverly was there.
Yeah, exactly. Beverly was well represented. And Jack Lausch has an uncle who is a big time chef, and he brought the max tailgate spread that certainly put our tailgate spread to shame. but it was very nice to be set up. But it's just, this is the kind of experience that Northwestern can offer you. And in this unique window we're in that we've talked about so many times also, this is all happening right in the middle of campus, right? And it is just this unique, special thing where this community is all literally together and experiencing all of these things together. And, you know, you're seeing everyone, right? Everyone in this community in a tight space, like doing all this together. So, I mean, it's just awesome. Everything we've talked about the past couple of weeks, it just continued in spades.
And on that note, I also want to shout out Sydney Supley for taking the time to talk to my daughter for a good while.
There's history there.
You know, there's history there. There's definitely history there. But it was really cool that, you know, Sydney was talking with, you know, some of her friends from the softball team, and I came up with my daughter, and she took the time, you know, got down, said hi, remembered her. I mean, it would have been hard to forget their first interaction when my daughter just asked her for a ball to sign from her bag.
That remains one of the biggest flexes I've ever seen. Walking up to a college athlete and being like, "Do you have a ball you can sign for me?"
At age 4, right?
Yeah. No, this was 2 years
Yeah,
old.
Sorry.
She was 6,
okay.
I think. Yeah. But that ball has a place front and center in our living room. It's to this day. But the fact that, you know, Sydney again took the time to talk with her, and it was really, really cool. So thank you so much for that. Really, really appreciate it. But yeah,
awesome. And you jogged my memory on that too, because softball was just a few tailgates down from us. But like half the lacrosse team walked by right in the middle of the game, and we, you know, pulled them into a discussion about our goal, you know, everyone's goal of trying to pack the place for a lacrosse game in the spring, and all the ins and outs of that, and like what are the largest crowds that they've seen up to this point and everything. And again, it's like, it's the whole world that you want to be a part of condensed into this tiny area right in the middle of campus that we're all experiencing together, and then you get to go watch a football game. I mean, it's, what more can you ask for?
Was there we talked about it last week? Was there a more noticeable student presence, or
Yes.
is that still not?
Yes.
Okay, good.
So
Awesome.
New Student Week began today, Monday the 16th. So it was still a couple days before New Student Week, but the student section was way more in force on Saturday than even like the week before and the week before that. But yeah, it was definitely more presence.
Awesome. Well, October 5th. You know, not looking ahead. I'm just circle it now because that's the students' first chance or next chance to come out in force, and we're gonna have what appears to be a really good Indiana team coming to town. That's gonna be a hell of a game.
Yeah, but you know, before that game is definitely taking a new tenor as we watch Indiana play the first few weeks. But let's talk about this weekend's game, Big Ten matchup in Seattle against Washington. You know, Washington team that's coming off a loss in the Apple Cup. But you know, what do we make of Washington? What do we make of this game?
They probably should have not lost.
Exactly.
Frankly.
Exactly.
100%. But therein lies the rub. And this is, we should say too that we're part of this College Huddle network now, and it is particularly useful when we're facing a team that we've never faced before that's suddenly in our conference to have the Sound the Siren podcast. And Scuzz, I think you're going to be going on their pod later in the week, but they were sharing some intel with us, and I think it's I would say that largely it is so many of the things that we talked about when we talked about Washington in the summer. Like, if you talk to them, they're like, our quarterback looks great, pass pro looks pretty good, like defense looks pretty good, like the talent is there. It's not what it was last year, but if you're just saying like in terms of guys, we got plenty of good guys. We're not executing. And that's, if you look at the Apple Cup Scuzz was talking about, it is like Washington won the turnover battle and outgained their opponent by 70 yards and lost. And the reason they lost is they had 13 penalties for 135 yards. They had 90 more penalty yards than their opponent did, and that is not an aberration. This is the third most penalized team in the country through 3 games. We talked about it. You throw a bunch of brand new parts together at all levels on both sides of the ball, and you change out all of the coaches. Messy football is what you would expect, and that is exactly what they're dealing
Roughly
with right
double the number of penalties and the volume of yards that Northwestern has been penalized to date. And Sound the Siren pointed out in particular 5 penalties on 3rd down, extending Wazoo drives.
Right.
Yeah, the other piece they called out, there was a Will Rogers got pulled the drive before halftime for the backup QB. I don't know if that was a change it up kind of thing, or if Desmond Williams is more of a running threat or what. But that felt like a real bad call to them that led to a punt. And then Sound the Siren didn't mention this, but the game ended, and I don't do this to trigger Northwestern fans. I do this so that like we all get in our Northwestern bubble, and we think things only happen to us. Almost on the goal line to win the game, Washington ran a speed option.
We should say they actually ran a speed option.
Yeah, Northwestern didn't run a speed option. We ran QB power. But still, they ran a non-running quarterback laterally on a play to win the game, and it did not work.
Right.
And I don't say that to say anything about Duke or even Washington. It's just like in the early part of the season, coaches screw this stuff up or make calls that they wish they had back, or they try something that they think's going to work. Like Northwestern ran 2 plays in that EIU game that I was like, God damn it, where was that in double OT?
Right.
And that's the thing. What? And it does, John's point is so spot on. If these 2 teams come in to this game and either one of them, it's going to come down to execution. And I don't know what the line is on this game. I was looking for it earlier today and I just missed it.
You want to guess?
I assume it's Washington by a touchdown.
Nope.
It's more.
10.5.
10.5. Holy.
I mean, again, it's spread it on, baby.
Well,
I can't. This is where we live.
I mean, the reason for that is when you look at expected points per play, EPA per play, opponent adjusted, etc. Washington is in the upper right quadrant, Northwestern is in the upper left quadrant, meaning a good D, bad O, and that doesn't take into account what we all saw in front of our eyes, which was Jack Lausch developing in the course of that game. And
it's funny, Scuzz, to say that. We were talking to the Sound of the Siren, and one of the things that he said was, I'm just going to quote it here.
Yeah, go for it.
Haven't watched your game from this weekend yet, but unless Lausch is as fleet of foot as Wazoo's QB, I'm less concerned about a repeat of the yards we allowed. And I'm like, the one thing I can 100% guarantee you is that Jack Lausch is as fast as Washington State's quarterback.
So it's Washington. They were really known for their defensive line last year. Their secondary, their defense was really good. They racked up 7 sacks against Eastern Washington in the second week of the year, and have done very little other than that. I think they got 1 against Washington State, 1 or 2 against Weber. They haven't given up a ton of sacks either, but they have not faced a defensive line like ours, and their young O-line or their rebuilt O-line seems to be performing well. This is the other big question to me. If our D-line and our rotation can disrupt them and throw them off, then I really like Northwestern's chances to out-execute Washington in this game.
And also, Will Rogers is not the fleetest of foot.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, he's great quarterback. He's thrown for a ton of yards.
Oh, for sure.
He's super experienced. But again, it goes back to you can look at the Washington State game and be like, Washington was 4 of 13 on 3rd down. And you can be like, Will Rogers like he only threw 8 incomplete passes. He threw for 314 yards, and then they rushed for another 145. How the heck were they only 4 of 13 on third down? Because they screwed up a ton.
Yep.
It's like you all watched the Duke game. You're familiar with this experience of like the maddening experience of like, oh my gosh, every time we just do what we're supposed to do, we're all over this team, but we don't seem to be doing it. That's the same thing Washington was. All their fans are being like, oh my gosh, when we just get out of our own way for a second. Well, someone's going to play a cleaner football game in this game.
Well,
again,
the Duke game is the perfect comp because so Will Rogers has averaged, I mean, he's ended every season that he's played with negative yards rushing. The comp to Malik Murphy is extremely good. Now Rogers has a better pedigree passing than Malik Murphy. He has a lot more experience. The air raid scheme that he ran under Mike Leach in 22 was he was awesome. Not as much in a different offense in 23, but out the gate he's looking pretty good here in 2024, albeit against pretty mediocre competition. Now against Duke, we harried and harassed Malik Murphy nonstop. Duke has really good wideouts. Their wideouts are probably better than Washington's, frankly. And it wasn't until they went to warp speed and negated our defensive rush and our defensive rotation that they really got the leg up on us late in that game. Again, Rodgers is a more experienced quarterback. He is probably going to be better. He's not going to be throwing into a 20 mile an hour wind, I would assume, either. So this is going to be another extremely difficult test for our young secondary. But I love the matchup for us, and it allows us to build on what we were really successful with on defense in week 2. And then the key is on the other side of the ball. And if we can build on last week's offense, and if Jack can execute and the guys can do what they're supposed to do, if the offensive line can maintain that executional and physical edge against, what's a talented but young D-line, we got some opportunities. I shouldn't say young, like not heavily experienced D-line. Then we should have a chance in this game. It's appropriate that we're underdogs. We should be underdogs. We shouldn't be 10.5-point underdogs, but we'll see.
The other thing too, it's in Washington. It's a home game for Washington. But again, it's like, this is a rivalry game, but one of these teams is from the eastern fringes of an enormous state, east to west, and this game was played in the Seahawks Stadium in Seattle. So this is a de facto home game for Washington. They scored a touchdown in the first quarter, and they didn't score another touchdown the rest of the game. They had 4 field goals. Washington's got a great kicker. But that's the thing. Like, don't just be like, well, they got this huge home field. Washington got stuck in the mud in this game because of execution. They scored in the first, thought things were going to go great, and then didn't get into the end zone the whole rest of the game. They had the reverse of the situation that we had in our game, where they just got stuck. And again, it's the same thing. Northwestern we have ourselves had 13 penalties in the past 2 games, which is not great. It's nothing compared to what Washington's been dealing with in terms of penalties, but it's not great. We have to clean this up. And again, it's like, it's not, yes, like the Washington is a team, like they played in the national championship last year, but these are all the things that, again, we mapped out in the summer. It's all new pieces.
Yeah, it's not the same team.
It's not the same team. And I think our point was very much less, it's not that we're talking about this because of a talent drop-off. Of course, like you're losing Penix, you're losing Adunze, etc. It was more just like they're going to throw a whole bunch of new guys together and have to work it all out, and they are very much not there yet.
New guys, new coaches, new everything.
Right. And that's the thing, is like, it's not about talent in this game. Like, I'm telling you, the talent we're putting on the field is every bit as good as the talent that they're putting on the field. It's going to be execution. The team that doesn't make mistakes in this game is the team that's going to win. That 10.5 means nothing to me.
It means it's a second quarterback on his second start, going on the road to a place that is just traditionally tough.
Sure.
to play. That's what it is.
Right.
That's the calculus. And then two teams that when you look at the raw numbers, right? Or not raw, but the opponent adjustment numbers and all those advanced stats, et cetera, would tell you that it should be a wide spread. But it doesn't. That does not reflect the trends that have been afoot in the last two halves of games.
And for Jack Lausch, the opportunity of opportunities, man. I mean,
go get it, buddy.
Go get it. I mean, like, we all know that guy's got that dog in him. We know that he fits in this system like a glove. Man, he's a sick player to watch. Like, that's the thing we have to come back, right, and be like, none of us had really literally ever seen him throw a football, which is part of what colored everything in the first half. But once he was dropping dimes in the second half, he just looks great throwing the ball. He's really comfortable. He moves really well with his eyes downfield, and he executes the system really faithfully. And these are the things. Like, Zach Lujan is going to be putting him in position to succeed, and he's going to have some real shots. So, yeah, massive opportunity. Like, go get it, Jack Lausch. Like, come back, go out there, make yourself a hero, and come on back.
If you or a loved one is seriously injured by someone else's negligence, hire Kent Simpson of the Simpson Law Group. After over a decade prosecuting murder cases in Chicago, Simpson opened his own firm focused on wrongful death and personal injury cases. He specializes in car, truck, motorcycle, boat, and other transportation accidents, as well as construction accidents, medical negligence, slip and falls, product liability, and more. Millions recovered for clients. No fee unless he wins. The Simpson Law Group. Compassion, empathy, and vigorous advocacy. Go to SinsonLawGroup.com or call 312-332-2107 for a free consultation. And go Cats. Shall we look back at the rest of the conference this past week? Some kind of big news that popped off a little bit. What's your number one takeaway from last week in the Big Ten?
Ooh.
I mean, as it for me, so much of it is goes back to as it pertains to us.
Sure.
And along those regards, Purdue, like, yes, they got the avenging wrath of Notre Dame that was trying to get their head screwed on straight, but Purdue still got absolutely erased by Notre Dame in that football game.
300-something running yards.
Yeah, absolutely erased by a Notre Dame team that lost 2 linemen in that game and apparently has lost them for the season. And I don't know what Wisconsin
Speak of losing someone for the season.
I mean, they lost their quarterback, and let's be honest, and Scuzz has mapped this out plenty going back to the summer. It didn't look particularly great when they had him.
Well,
and I don't know where this puts them now.
He only played for 7 plays. But as I've complained about Wisconsin incessantly for a year and a quarter now, all 7 plays were Tyler Van Dyke plays. 5 passes and 2 QB runs to start this game. And on the 7th play, he got tackled out of bounds and popped his knee. And it is a real bummer for Tyler Van Dyke. It's a real bummer for Wisconsin. They're going back to is it Brady Hoke? Not Brady Hoke. That's the former coach of Michigan.
I'd like to see that.
Braden Locke. I was very close. So they're going back to Braden Locke, who played a fair amount last year. Dude's just maybe he'll have advanced, but I think they just continue to struggle to fit the culture and the talent of this team into the offense that they want to run. They just have not connected those dots, and we're a season and a quarter in, and now they've lost the guy that was supposed to be the centerpiece of fixing it this year, and it's a mess. Now, I mean, they were going to get steamrolled in this game anyway. Jalen Milroe was electric. The Wisconsin defense had zero ability to stop Alabama.
Well, that's the other thing too. Like, I feel like I've seen 25 Wisconsin teams, I think, give or take, in the history of my Northwestern fandom. This team's not in the top 20 of those teams. It's not the year to be playing Alabama, for sure.
Yeah, their defense just is not. It's not what it was, and it doesn't have the same coach. And they are. This is rough for Wisconsin. It's rough for Luke Fickell, a guy that was coaching Cincinnati. I was a fan of this dude. He was he was a really good coach and a really good dude in the city, and he's gone to what seemed like the perfect situation, and I don't think it's going to end well.
I don't. And again, I bring it back to us, right? And it's like in the short term for us, getting this team at home, like there are zero indicators that this team has solved any of the problems that you saw when we played them in Madison last year. Zero. So that's a game to be feeling good about. And Purdue, I continue to feel good about, especially after that Notre Dame game.
Yeah, on the other hand,
in Indiana, they hit the jackpot getting O'Rourke, getting Curtis Rourke from Ohio. Just the absolute perfect transfer. This dude is lighting it up. He's thrown for 800 yards, 7 touchdowns in 3 games. I feel like Curt Cignetti, the coach of Indiana, is like trying to make a point of just hammering everyone they play. They have not faced a defense yet, so like they got to show this against stiffer competition too. We all know UCLA had an absolute huge drop off in talent of just graduating players, and then also lost their coach Lynn,
D'Anton Lynn,
Lynn to USC across town. So but Indiana looks really good. They're going to be hyper confident, probably 5-0 rolling into Evanston, and
they're going to be 5-0 if they handle Maryland like they might be able to handle Maryland. They could be 5-0 and ranked with a top 5 defense in the country when they play us. Yeah. Which no good news there. But these are the.
We said at the beginning of the season, right? They had a lot of interesting pieces and the potential to put something together, and they don't have a very difficult schedule as the year goes. They get a lot of. They get Michigan at home. They could beat Michigan at home. Michigan doesn't have. Michigan can't throw the ball.
Tell me if this sounds familiar. They went and brought in a bunch of awesome small school coaches and upgraded them to a higher level, and you know what? It's going pretty great for them.
Turns out those guys know how to coach.
Yeah, how about it, huh?
Yep.
Anything else stick out to you guys from last weekend?
Michigan is, I think, important to talk about because Davis Warren, the walk-on QB, threw 3 picks, no TDs, was 11 of 14 and was thrown downfield, but in fact, all 3 of his incompletions were interceptions in this game against Arkansas State. And that's the hard part. Alex Orji is going to take over for him this week against USC. God, talk about putting a guy in a tough spot. They couldn't have gotten him a little bit more run early on, and it just tells you either that coaching staff is really struggling with evaluation and decision making in their first year as post Harbaugh, or they have zero faith in Orji for some rational, reasonable reason, and now they're going to throw him out against this USC defense, which is not like soft past USC defenses because they've got an awesome coach now, and we said at the beginning of the year, John, you were much more bearish than me on Michigan. We both thought that it would be a relative down year, but the worst case scenario seems to be in play for the Wolverines right now.
It is amazing. I think we were right. We were like, there's that tiny situation where they just don't get it at quarterback, and then what happens? Yeah, but I wouldn't have. But again, it's these are the ups and the downs. I'm feeling way worse about Indiana and way better about Michigan, and that's the fun stuff. It's the fun things, is the things that you just can't predict.
So looking ahead to this week, first week of full Big Ten action, we got a game on Friday night. This makes me ill to just look at. Number 24 Illinois versus number 22 Nebraska. What the hell? Come on, guys.
So here's the funny thing about this is you look at the fact that somehow both of these teams are ranked. The sharps will tell you the truth of this game. which is Nebraska as a 9.5 point favorite.
Well, they're not going to bet until late in the week because they're probably waiting to see how much the public pumps Nebraska, and then, or if the public doesn't pump Nebraska, they're gonna jump on them. I don't know. We'll see how that line moves throughout the week. If it does not swing back to Illinois, then yeah, you're spot on that the Sharps are all like, oh yeah, no, there's nothing here.
And basically, this entire Illinois thing is underpinned. They've won 2 games we expected them to win on their schedule. And then they also have a 5-point win over a Kansas team that is currently face planting in the face of expectations right now. And again, like that UNLV team may be something, but the fact is this was a Kansas team that started the season ranked and was supposed to be onto big things, and they're 1-2 right now and really trying to figure things out.
I mentioned Curtis Rourke and his stats. Dylan Raiola is close behind him with 670 yards passing and 5 TDs.
I know. As again, Sam, try to continue to keep your dinner down, but I do not feel the same way about Nebraska that I feel about Illinois.
Yeah, we thought they'd be good, and they've looked awesome today.
Nebraska's got a great football. They've got a great quarterback and a great defense, man. They're going to win a lot of games.
Jeez. Okay. Going to Saturday, 11 a.m. on Fox. Marshall at Ohio State. Ohio State a 40-point favorite. Cool. Whatever.
Will Howard, not nearly as good of stats as either Dylan Raiola or Curtis Rourke. Just throwing that out there. But this game is meaningless. Ohio State's going to roll.
This is also this puts us in with this being Washington week, the over-under on the amount of times that I call Will Rogers Will Howard or Will Howard Will Rogers is just take that off the table. It's going to happen many times.
Charlotte at Indiana. Again, we're not going to learn much from this game. Indiana is a 28-point home favorite.
Look away, children, unless you're a Hoosier. And if you're a Hoosier, enjoy this. I hate that we're going to have to play a good Indiana team in a few weeks, but the Indiana football fans have maybe suffered more than any other Big Ten fans. And I just pop the champagne, not the champagne yet. It's too early for the champagne, but
enjoy it.
Live
enjoy
it up,
it.
folks.
Kick back, relax,
enjoy this to the max. I salute you.
Again, you talk about laundry. 28-point favorites, that's laundry. This feels like a 49-0 game to me. That's the way Indiana's playing right now. I mean, again, like Scott said, in so much as their interests don't conflict with our interests, I want to beat them on the lake. May they win every other game. I got no problems with Indiana football.
Villanova at Maryland. No line on that as Villanova is FCS, but
yeah.
But again, file it once again into Maryland. To their credit, 27-13 over Virginia. I think that game was kind of up in the air for a long time. It was really low scoring for a while, but continues to be, you better beat Villanova. You better beat Mark Jackson's erstwhile Villanova Wildcats. Maryland, you better get it done.
Kent State, Penn State. Cool. Penn State's a 49-point home favorite. Great.
Yeah. This makes me wish Indiana
200 yards for Nick Singleton.
This makes me wish Indiana and Penn State were playing this year.
Yeah, seriously.
I know for sure. 100%.
The big one of the week: Southern Cal, Michigan, 2:30 on CBS.
God, is it though?
USC
5.5. 5.5 point road favorite in the Big House.
I mean, it's not an easy place to play. They got to travel cross country, but man, every other indicator.
You've got a guy who's in discussions as things currently stand. He's in the mix for number 1 pick in the draft right now, versus a team that doesn't really have a QB right now. I mean, crazy.
If you like USC, but might as well jump on this now, because that line's going to get very close to 7 by the end of the week.
100%.
Rutgers at Vatech, 2:30 on the ACC network. Vatech is a 3-point home favorite.
This is very intriguing.
That's fascinating to me because that doesn't seem. I mean, Vatech's got a loss to Vandy. And again, Rutgers thumped them last year and hasn't really given any indication that they couldn't thump them again this year. They've only played 2 games, but to me, I think Rutgers is going to go in there and win.
I mean, Rutgers looked better against Akron and Howard than Vatek did against Marshall and Old Dominion, for what it's worth. But this one's going to be very interesting.
Hide your children. UCLA at LSU.
Chris, our buddy Chris Giannini, friend of the pod, massive LSU fan. Congratulations, buddy. You pulled that game out, that heart attack of a game. You survived it, got the win, and now you get to play UCLA. And yeah, again, hide your kids indeed. 24.5-point favorites. That doesn't feel like enough to me. Like Nussmeier, he's going to go after 4 bills in this one for sure. UCLA, this is where the downward spiral begins.
Iowa at Minnesota, 6:30 NBC.
I am kind of mortified that this game is happening in September.
Yeah, right? I mean, this game needs to be in November where the weather is terrible.
It feels like it should be -10, right?
Yeah, or at least late October. This is I think for me, this is the most interesting game of the week because we're going to learn if Minnesota's for real. They looked good running. Brosmer really struggled the first couple games. He looked bad against North Carolina. Started to really figure it out against an FCS opponent in week 2. And looked good against Nevada last week. So now he gets to go against the Iowa defense. And on the other side of the ball, Iowa's offense has looked awful. Even against Troy, they really struggled.
Whoa. Hang on. Time out. Are you telling me Iowa's offense looks bad? But they changed their coordinator. Come on, Scuzz.
I know. And yes, they scored 38 points last game, but the momentum picked up. They had I think they had a defensive score. I can't recall. But anyways, point being, at halftime they were losing to Troy early in this game, and then things kind of opened up in the third quarter. But I fully expect Iowa to win this game on the strength of their defense and doing more on offense than they did last year. But it's no guarantee. Cade has looked bad. Sullivan actually got in and threw a touchdown pass.
I was going to say QBR of 100 for Brendan Sullivan.
They've clearly put him in a goal line situation, and for the dual threat of it all, and he threw a TD pass. So kudos to Sully there. But this game will be quite telling, I think, in informing us about both these teams.
Brendan Sullivan TD pass, leading Iowa receiver Jacob Gill in this game.
Right. I mean, no shots to Gill, but
it's wild.
For him to be the leading receiver tells you a lot about that offense.
7 o'clock on ACC Network. Michigan State 3-0. Michigan State at Boston College. BC 6.5-point home favorite.
I don't think they'll be 3-0 for long, but who knows?
No,
Aiden Childs might surprise us.
Well,
break out the chiles.
Is funny. The Aiden Chile says we were joking. I think it truly is a testament to just how low the expectations for Michigan State were this season, that they're, in some ways, I think there's a little bit of framing as them as plucky underdogs. Childs' numbers are not great. He has 4 touchdowns, 5 interceptions on the season right now, and he's completing barely more than half of his passes. And really, again, the quote-unquote bar that they're clearing all comes down to this 3-point win over Maryland, a Maryland team that may be awful.
Yeah, well, they looked
they
bad.
beat FAU by 6.
Bad against FAU. Bad.
Right.
Now he was he completed 42% of his passes against FAU, and then was up above 63 against both Maryland and then Prairie View. So maybe that FAU game is maybe that palate cleanser, just like we saw the first half of Lausch. But
they play BC and then they play Ohio State.
Yeah,
so we're
and BC's good.
Yeah.
Right.
Bill O'Brien doing the deed there.
Right. So yeah, I think The bloom is probably going to come off the rose pretty quick here.
And then on the CW, 7:30 p.m. Purdue at Oregon State. Oregon State only a 4.5-point home favorite.
Man, after getting steamrolled by the Irish, having to travel to Corvallis to play an always tough Oregon State team is a tough pill. Purdue should be better than Oregon State. Oregon State had a total drain of talent, turned over their coaches, but this is a tall order.
Right. This is the kind of game that Walter's like, you need to be winning this one. That again, like the luster came off that 49-0 FCS win really quickly. Like you need to find it here.
Looking nationally, what else is catching your guys' eye here? Oh, I should also note our game against Washington is a 6 p.m. Central kickoff, and also want to also mention that we will be watching the game at our home away from home, downtown Chicago. Beer Miscuous will be hosting us again.
It's going to be fun. Like for everyone who is curious, I think the probably single biggest thing that people have said, that we've heard, because we've been to a lot of football and basketball games. Beer Miscuous really became our home away from home, just like Sam said last year. People love the place, love the style of it, love the location at that Lincoln Diversity and Racine intersection. It's awesome. We definitely heard from people that not enough TVs and not large enough TVs, but Austin's setting up a projector this time, so it's going to be a big screen experience for the game. And he's got new equipment and he's breaking it out, so we're excited. It's going to be a great viewing experience. And again, like the quality of beers there, the location, and just the spot itself have always been awesome. And plus, Austin's a huge Northwestern fan and a Northwestern alum, and we've said it before, but that's what we've always wanted. We have always wanted Northwestern to have that place in the city run by a Northwestern alum who was a huge fan, who was really big about pulling everyone in. And we really found that last year with Beer Miscuous, and like the sense of community that was built there. It's the same kind of stuff we talk about with the tailgate. It's just like a spot that a bunch of people are coming into where you get that great Northwestern community experience and everyone's really celebrating together. Like that's what Beer Miscuous is for us. And that, like Sam said, it's become our home away from home, for road games. So yeah, I'm going to be there 100%. I know, Sam, I think you're going to try to make it if you can. But everyone should come out to that. It's going to be fun. And there are multiple places to get food right around there. There's like a taco place literally right next door. And the beer selection is as good as literally any place in the city. So we will be there. It's going to be a great time. And hopefully we'll get the Beer Miscuous season started off right.
Going back to the national slate, just kind of scanning through, nothing really tasty.
How about 23rd ranked Northern Illinois hosting Buffalo?
Back
to the Jordan Lynch days.
Tennessee at Oklahoma is pretty hype.
Utah, Oklahoma State.
Utah, Oklahoma State is tasty. Georgia Tech, Louisville. Jeff Brome, I think, is going to do a little bit more at Louisville than people expect this year, and Georgia Tech coming off some exciting times. Is Florida State Cal this week?
I believe it is.
It is, and Cal's been talking so much
Cal
trash.
Cal is 3-0. Florida State is 0-3. It's in Tallahassee, but the Bears are coming, y'all.
And Florida State is a 2-point home favorite.
I mean, good luck with that. It's funny too because Florida State and Florida are so bad right now. Miami's sweet.
Yeah.
They found their quarterback, and they look like they're clicking right now. And it's a big game for them against South Florida, who might just be the second best team in the state. But Miami's cooking, so I'll definitely be keeping an eye on that one too.
Do they all play?
That'll be running parallel to our game too.
I know Miami will play Florida State this year, right? They play Florida State. Do they play? They don't play Florida though.
Miami already played Florida.
Oh, you're right. They smoked them.
They beat them like a drum.
Well, I mean, all this means is that Miami's going to miss a field goal and lose to Florida State. I mean, that's how this works, right?
That's basically that's effectively what Florida State fans are 100% pinning their season on. FSU, as long as we're bringing it up, one random thing about FSU is, for people who remember, Juice Crowder was one of the big players who decommitted from Northwestern during all the craziness. Linebacker. He and Nigel Glover were, two of our biggest linebacker recruits, and they both transferred out to Ohio State and Florida State, and then Glover transferred back in. Well, Crowder is, on one hand, he's still really young now. I mean, he's a redshirt freshman, and he's basically been thrown into full-time duty almost by default. I think he might even be their starting middle linebacker now. So he's putting up pretty good stats for one of the worst Florida State teams ever. So it's like a little yin and yang there. But just an interesting random detail about that. But yeah, aside from that, like not too much. Like it's going to be an interesting day to just sit back and watch a bunch of football before our game starts up.
Anything else to mention before we get out of here tonight, guys?
Yeah, just to bring it back to the tailgate experience, and again, how great it was walking back from the game afterwards. And again, Sam, you and I split up, and it was so great to have Shoshi there too, which was so cool. But you guys headed out, and then I went back to the tailgate with. How
was the vibe back at the tailgate?
Very great. My only regret is that I didn't. The Lausch family celebration was in full force, but I had to leave before I think Jack, or his, parents could come back and actually formally swing by. But got to have a couple great conversations. Just a couple of just awesome people. I mean, got to talk to Theron Johnson's family, Kenny Soares' family, CJ Johnson's family. Just awesome people. I could go on and on. I mean, just. You all know, I mean, it's such a great community with cool people from all over the place that you get to have just great conversations with, and it was just so much fun. A great day, great night, and we're get to cool our heels for like 2.5, 3 weeks, and think about how great that experience was for the past 3 weeks before we get to go out and do it again, this time with the students against Indiana.
Well, on that note, we'll go ahead and leave it there for tonight. Head to our website, westlawpirates.com, where you can leave comments and questions. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at westlawpirates, and email the show, westlawpirates@gmail.com. Tune in next time as we give our visceral and statistical views on Northwestern athletics. Look for us in the West Tech lot at Northwestern flying the red pirate flag, because we give no quarter, especially the fourth. For John Lacombe and Eric Skazba and Sam Walter, thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next time.